You're listening to an interview I recorded for Behind the Vinyl, a different podcast I co-host from time to time. You can find them on Instagram at Behind the Vinyl Pod and anywhere podcasts are available. And now let's get on with the interview. Big Nothing is a Philly supergroup composed of 4 musicians from the area, and their combined musical experience makes for a completely different and reflective sound. Their brand new album, Dog Hours, comes out on February 18th via the local Lamo Records, and today I have the privilege of speaking with guitarist and one of 3 vocalists, Pat Graham. Pat, thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right, so for starters, Big Nothing is a fairly new band in the past couple years, but you're no stranger to the Philly music scene. You started Spray Nerd back in 2008, right?
Very true. Wow, good. I was actually trying to think of the year recently. Good research skills.
Yeah. So how is your approach to this band been different to your last one?
There are similarities there as with anything, but it's pretty much, I think it's completely different. Like Spray Nerd was born out of the 3 of us in that band have been friends since high school, since we were 14 or 15. And we were in a band together in high school that was kind of like an anti-flag kind of punky band, really trying to be a political fast skate punk band. And then once that fizzled out, the 3 of us stayed in a band together. And it was just much more of an organic shared, we were in high school together being let's go on tour and live the dream. And then it just bled over into college. It didn't feel like it ever stopped. It was just this constant dream since we were 15.
Right.
So that was a much more organic, just I wasn't thinking about what it meant to be in a band or what music meant to me. It was just this is all we do and we're going to keep doing it. And then the touring was just a means of going on adventures and stuff. And just, trying to live this dream we were watching other people do. And then once Spray Nerd ended, it was way more into the songwriting side of things and music and why I loved music. I took a little break from playing in bands at all and more was starting to get focused on writing the perfect pop song and focusing on my songwriting skills. And then, just naturally having friends in Philly that I think Liz in Big Nothing had just moved to Philly and she was really hungry to start a band. And I was I'll start a band with you. And I met Chris, the drummer, at a party and he was in a band called Young Livers from back in the day, which Spray Nerd was all huge fans of. So that made sense to try and poach him. And he had just moved there too. So it was kind of a fresh, they were just moving to Philly trying to start bands, which is kind of the Philly dream. That's what everybody, it does. For anybody out there that's trying to move to Philly to start a band, it does work. It works 100% of the time from what I've seen.
Awesome.
And then Matt and I are old friends too. Matt and I have known each other since high school. So yeah, in that regard, it was much more of let's start a band. We have intention from the jump, let's start a band that sounds like the Replacements and let's play these kind of shows or try and play with these bands instead of Spray Nerd was so much more just we hung out together, lived together, worked together, and we're just a constantly organic kind of growing thing.
Awesome. And just speaking of your, relationships with one another, you have on your Spotify bio that you guys always joke the motivation for band practice is getting together for dinner afterwards. I know a lot of bands love making music together, but don't necessarily hang out all the time. Is getting together outside of music something that's really important to you guys?
Yeah, it's music has always been my center for hanging out. We've definitely hung out a million times outside of band practice, but especially since the pandemic, there have been countless times that we're okay, let's practice on Thursday. And then it becomes Wednesday and we're all do you guys just want to go to a bar instead? Yeah. And it's we really do love hanging out with each other. And especially when we have a new record coming out and we can't really tour given the pandemic and given our jobs and stuff, our lives outside of music, there's not really a reason to get together, unless we have a show or something. We do want to hang out every week, but we're also just we don't need to play music this week unless someone has a riff or something, but I think hanging out has always been my favorite part of being a band. I love writing songs. I love recording, but hanging out with my friends. I would never be in a random band full time, of strangers. I always pick who I want to hang out with first and then be can you play an instrument?
Yeah, I think that definitely makes the whole process, from songwriting to performing a lot more cohesive. I'd imagine it just makes you more comfortable with each other, to be friends as well.
It's weird because it does, obviously it definitely aids to the music. I think more than anything, and this was super evident when I was in Spray Nerd, is that I feel bad for people that come to see us because I've never really cared about being a wild, tight, great live band. It's just how much possible fun can I have while I'm up here? Because like, as much as like, music is a community to me and I want everyone to be having fun during a set, like that's the 20 minutes in my year that I feel good. So it's like, how do I just keep this going?
Yeah, cool. And on that same note too, there's 3 of you that share vocal duties. So is that the same way in songwriting? Is there a lot of diversity in who creates what?
Yeah, you know what? Going from Sprainerd to this, that's also like a world of difference. The 3 of us on Chris, the album Chris, all 3 of us sang. On this new one, I actually ducked out of the vocal duties. I don't have any songs I sing on this one, but I have 2 that I wrote. And then like I have a hand in every song, essentially. Like this album was much more like Matt and Liz sending me songs and me being like, this doesn't really have a chorus. We should do a chorus here or something, like been a lot of piecing together of that. This album was a little more straightforward because I think me ducking out and like the way we wrote it was just sending demos to each other instead of practicing every week for obvious reasons. Yeah. And then with Chris, it was definitely a challenge. Like I won't lie. It's just like, it is a challenge. It's really rewarding when it all clicks and works out. But like, I have an ego and the other 2 definitely have egos. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but like there's just a lot of emotion involved when it's, Matt sends us 10 songs in 3 days. And then Liz is like, well, I'm still working on this one. And then like Matt's offended if we didn't like the 1 out of the 10 that he really loved. It's just like a weird balance. And we all like really love each other's songs. So it's like this weird thing where I have a lot of feelings behind this song, but then that means this song can't go on the record or like. It's a weird thing to balance. I think we do find a good place for it, but more than anything with the new album, I was like, I want to duck out just because like I don't listen to a lot of records where there's 3 singers. And I was like, I love Matt's voice. I love Liz's voice. Let's just like hone this in a little more, Sure. Like I can identify with bands better if there's just one voice that's like carrying the theme,
Yeah, definitely. So, and I know you mentioned in an interview a few years ago that you were thinking of maybe ducking out on vocal duties and just writing some songs for Matt and Liz.
Did
so you did actually. That was another question I was going to ask. What made you make that decision?
I don't know. I guess it had been coming for a long time. But no, I don't know, man. It's just like, it's a bit complex of an answer because I do love singing and I think it's really cathartic for me. And I love more than anything, I love writing songs. Like, I don't care if someone else is singing my melody, like that's not, or lyrics. Like I don't hold, that stuff's not precious to me. But another factor to it is like, I lose my voice really easily. I yell, like I push my voice really hard. And like on Sprainerd tours, dude, it was like almost like scary. Like I would lose my voice to a point where I couldn't talk, like physically couldn't talk. At least 1, maybe 2 shows, Dose, our drummer, sang the whole set because my voice was gone. And I'm not a big doctor guy, so I just have never looked into what was going on. And like, I think I've probably damaged my voice at some point in so it is like singing is scary for me. Like it's like anxiety inducing. So there's just a part of me that like, I love playing shows, but I don't need to be singing the song, So I was like, it's fun having these 3 singers, but like, there were songs on Chris. I was like, Matt's voice would sound really good if it wasn't me though, And it's like, also that I wanted to lean more into the like, more of like the slacker indie pop kind of thing. And like, my voice just doesn't do that. I like my voice for what it's good for, but I think it's definitely more of a pop punk voice for lack of a better word. And like someday I'll write some songs that lends itself to, but for now we were trying to pull back with this record and be a lot more of like a calm, like quieter band. And like, my voice just doesn't do that. It just is yelling or not.
That's a good point. And I know you did speak to this a little bit just now, the diversity in terms of vocalists. And so I know that you guys all, I'm sure, write songs at different rates. So do you try to have like an even spread of who has written what on an album, or is it just whatever fits?
I think with Chris, we definitely talked about that a lot, which the more you talk about it, the more juvenile it feels. Like Chris, we tried to be like, okay, well, I have 3, Liz has 3. And I do wonder if like the Beatles or Fleetwood Mac like did these things because there's not a lot of bands with 3 singers. It's the only 3 I can think of right now. Not that I'm comparing us to Fleetwood Mac and the Beatles. It's just 2 I'm thinking of. But yeah, I don't know if they did the same thing, but it is this weird conversation of, well, I want to have 4, and we're all guilty of it. It's like all 3 of us had moments of like, why can't I have more? And it's like with this new album, I think we definitely all were like, let's just like write some songs, and if they're good, they're good. And like, the two I wrote, I had Matt and Liz both sing versions of it. That was my kind of diplomatic way of being like, let's truly see whose voice is best suited for this. And they were all very sweet to each other. So they were both like, it's you should sing this song. And I was like, no, like, and just kind of forcing the issue. I think in the past we were much more concerned about that, but I personally just want to like keep on moving with like, this song is amazing. I don't care who sings it, or at least who would best suit this,
Yeah.
But
okay.
that shit's hard to let go of too. I get it,
Yeah.
We have a lot of hard, stubborn people in this band.
Well, that's a good thing too. You guys all are
Yeah.
hard workers then, I think is what that means.
Sure, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like, it's not like, I say Matt writes 10 songs in a week. It's not like he's like shitting them out. He's like,
Right.
I took off work and spent all day on it. It's like, okay, you
Yeah.
have to hear it out, but it is hard to navigate for sure.
And so about the album, just going back in time again, in a 2019 interview with Punk Rock Theory, you said that it took you guys a couple years to put out your first album because you really wanted to take your time and be deliberate with each song. And so now with Dog Hours, it's been close to 3 years since that last release. Did you treat this the same way? And was the pandemic a factor in the timing at all?
Yeah, I mean, the pandemic was hugely a factor.
Okay.
We did treat this the same way, but I don't think it was on purpose. Like January and February of 2020, we were demoing some of these songs and we were ready to kind of keep the train rolling. And we were like, oh God, Chris has been out for almost a year now. Like we have to get moving. And like, we were demoing songs and we were kind of riding this thing. And like, I felt like we were pretty much ready to record by like April or something. And then the pandemic hit in March and it truly just, we all froze. Matt runs a business and Liz is like a manager there. So they are pretty intertwined with like business and stuff and they had to shut down. And so like, not until like May or June were any of us texting each other, like, what's the deal? Like we were all just kind of dealing with like what the hell was going on. So it was more like, we didn't really talk about the band. We're also not like a full-time band. We all have jobs. So kind of a weird thing where we kind of paused on those songs that we were demoing. And then Matt started sending like voice memos and we were like, oh, that's a cool riff. And like kind of just sending each other jokes of like, should we even worry about recording or like, what should this band be? And eventually we kind of like started getting strict. I don't remember. I think it was like May and June of 2020. Like there was a period where I was unemployed and Matt and Liz, the donut shop that Matt's owned was still closed. And we were just sending each other songs like every 10 minutes. So there was a good like month where that's all that we thought about was like writing these songs. And then we finally kind of had like 12 songs ready. And then we went to book time with Ian Farmer, who ended up recording the record. And, because of COVID, we were like, let's try for November. Like it was like a far time out. So we were like, hopefully it'll be cool by then. We like did the drums and bass in November. And then like, dude, it was like, I think like 6 months before we were able to get in there again, because November of 2020 is where it started kind of getting hairy.
Yeah.
And not until like March did we even talk about trying to get back in there. So it was weird. It was a weird recording process because then we just had these bass and drum tracks. We tried doing them at home for a minute, like tried doing all the guitars at home ourselves. And it just didn't work. It just was like too discombobulated. So we eventually got back into the studio for like another week and finished it. But it's been a long process. I don't know if any of the songs we wrote 2020 are even on this record. I can't remember. It's just been a long, weird process where, again, because we're not like a full-time touring band, nobody's been on our ass to like finish songs or like do anything. So it's just a weird, fun thing that's like, I guess we'll take 3 years to make a record. It's very bizarre.
That's cool. So, I mean, yeah, does having a job, an actual source of income away from music, does that take off a lot of the pressure of making music and just make it more of a freeing experience for you guys?
For sure. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. I mean, there's also a big hindrance to that. Like the times, like I remember, especially right after Chris, our first album came out, like we all wanted to tour like all the time, but we couldn't, and it was like balancing that was really hard. And I'm somebody that when I'm not working on new music, I'll be like, I'm not going to tour anymore. Like, I just want to work a job, because the financial side of it is always the motivating thing. Like my years in Sprainerd, even at our busiest, I was just terribly in debt. And like, that's a real thing that you just kind of have to cope with. And like, it's basically balancing how much you're willing to deal with that versus how much you want to be in a touring band. So I don't know. I'm the kind of guy that's like, I don't care while it's happening. And then as soon as we write a new record and people start being like, as soon as I'm validated and like I write some songs that people are like, these are good songs. I'm like,
Yeah.
let's tour all the time. I want to talk to everyone. And like, it's almost an addiction to validation, which is not healthy, but I think it's like something every musician has. And
Oh
like,
yeah.
it's a hard thing to say out loud, but like, it's one of the only times I feel like I'm doing a good job in life, you know, like real jobs aren't really set up to like aside every day and be like, you're doing great. But like, or at least once a night, you're getting like, that was a good set. And you're like,
Right.
wow, I exist, you know?
Yeah.
So that's a hard feeling to walk away from. But like when you do that and then look at your bank account and it's like, oh shit, like when the validation goes away, it's like, uh-oh, I'm broke and sad.
Yeah. Well, it's almost like a cycle in a way. Like you play a show, you know, you get the positive feedback and that motivates you to make more music and play another show. But if you know, get out of it for a while, do you find it has been harder to get back into it sometimes? Or do you just kind of like have inspiration you have to go create?
No, absolutely, dude. It's funny because like I think about this a lot. I think about it pretty much every day. But when I was in high school and like learning how to play music, it was much more just like I just wanted to learn and like create and like hear what I could do. I did have a little bit of that during the pandemic. Like I was trying to get better at guitar and like, you know, that feeling is amazing of like trying to improve on something and then hearing it back and being like feeling yourself actually, you know, growing. But the main motivation for me for being in bands is definitely like, if I'm going to be honest with myself, it's like validation. And like,
Yeah.
When you're out of that world, it is so hard to get back into it because you just don't believe it's going to happen. You know, like even the first single coming out for this record, I was like, and that's kind of a defense mechanism of mine. I was like, I don't care. I was like, who cares? I was like, these are just fun songs we made. I don't care. Like, and that's just a defense to be like, I don't care what people say. But then it came out that day and I had some friends text me like, love that you're still doing it. This song is cool. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is the best feeling in the world to like create something and have people connect to it and like feel like you have a purpose. And so now I'm like, you know, it is a slow, weird cycle where I'm trudging up that energy again of we should play some shows, you guys, you know?
Yeah. Definitely.
We had practice the other night and I was like, we should like practice. I was like, let's not go to the bar. And we were all like, yeah. So it is like a weird cycle, you know?
Yeah, interesting. Well, that's really cool. You mentioned your singles that you already have out. So you've already released A Lot of Finding Out and Still Sort of Healing in preparation. Yeah. So what made you choose those two specifically?
The first one, A Lot of Finding Out, is just literally my favorite song on the album. It's like a song that Matt had written and sent to me. And I remember we had like a day of going back and forth with it where I was like, the chorus should do this or like the verse should do this. And I didn't think much of it. Like it was just a cool power pop song. And I was like, this song's great. Like another great job, Matt, you know, like, yeah. And I didn't put it in the can and we're like, that one will definitely be on there. Maybe it'll be like 10th or something. And then when we went to make the record and like got the mixes back, I listened to them a million times and I was like, this song is so good. Like there was just something about that specific song in the context of the rest of the record that I was like, we've never done anything like this. And like, it really is just such a strong song in my mind of like, you know, I don't know. He just nailed it. I've loved Matt as a songwriter for years and years, like since we were kids. So like, I really am a fan of when he like nails his own, you know, like you just have like, especially being in bands with friends, you just like have expectations of them. And Matt, with that one, I was like, yep, this is exactly why I started a band with you. You know, like this is everything that I love that you do. Awesome. And it's fucking short. So it was just like, this is a great first single. It's just like, bloop, here you go. Yeah. This is like, we're still a power pop band. And then Still Sort of Healing is in a similar vein with Liz, where that was definitely her song on the album that she like put the most stock into. Like, you know, she had a couple other ones when we were demoing that she was like, I don't know about this one. Let's try it. And we would try it. And she'd be like, I don't know. But this one, she from the jump was like, I love this song. Let's work on this. And like, was really passionate about like fleshing it out and keeping it the way it was. And like, once it was all done, I was like, damn, this time I hear her sing the lyrics, I'm like, I'm sad, you know, like it was just such like it draws you in. And I was like, definitely, this is a very powerful song for her. And like, again, like I love Liz's songs. So it's like when it's her nailing her thing too, for sure. So yeah, just two strong ass songs that I think we were like, this is great.
Awesome. And so back to that cycle we talked about just a little bit. Mm-hmm. Are you planning to go on tour for this next album this year?
Currently, we're not. Honestly, we it especially has been weird because we knew Lamo was going to do the album back in the summertime. We kind of were starting to flesh that out, And COVID started getting really bad again, like around the time we were talking about press and like how to put the album out and like what it's going to look like. So it's just a weird time where like we have a release show booked, but even that was like, I hit up our friend Barrett that books at Johnny Brenda's and was like, can you book us a show? And he was like, yeah, but there's just a weird looming understanding of like, hopefully it happens, you know, like, so it's this weird thing where, and because we all have jobs that we're like pretty satisfied with, the touring thing, we're kind of in a boat of like, we had to talk about it the other night actually. And like in the past, I would have been like, okay, let's book 2 weeks. Like I'll hit up a bunch of friends, we'll go out. And I think we're kind of all in a position in our lives where we're not really down to do the like, let's play some shows and hope they do well. You know, like I think Philly has a lot of great bands. And if any of them were like, hey, we're going out for a week, come on out, I think we would all definitely entertain that. But I mean, we put it's funny because before this record, we were like basically on pause within the band, but also like we put out that first single and a lot of friends were like, oh yeah, you guys are a band. Do you want to like, we got asked to play a lot of shows that first day. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of what I expected to happen, but which is totally fine. I think that's where we're at. Like if we get offered a tour, we'll definitely entertain it, but we're not really gonna book our own tours anymore, you know, which feels crazy to say, but I'm not in a spot where I want to do it myself this time around. But like, you know, if someone's like, we'll give you a 6-pack every night, I'll go on tour.
Fair enough. Seems like a fair form of payment. Awesome.
Yeah, I don't.
So more about the album. The album is billed to represent a different version of the band. And I have to say, I honestly noticed a difference within listening to the first few bars of the opening track. Do you think Dog Hours is an evolution from Chris, your last album, or would you say it's more of a departure?
Oh, I would definitely say it's more of an evolution. Like Dog Hours to me is exactly what we were trying to do with Chris, but didn't really like have the wherewithal or like the tools to do quite yet. Like we're all still, even though we're like 5 years in, we take our time being a band. So we're all like still learning how to like play with each other while trying to like try new stuff. But the main crux of the whole thing is that Dog Hours was written entirely through demos and like home recorded demos. Like before this album, Matt didn't really ever record anything at home, like besides on his phone, you know?
Yeah.
He was like learning how to use different interfaces and use different software to record stuff. So like he was super stoked. That's why he was pumping out so many songs. Like he was just learning how to use GarageBand and like send us stuff. And like it was the first time we were able to write the like calm power pop quiet songs that we were like trying to accomplish for so long, because everything we've known before this is like pop punk or like loud punk bands. So like when we went to write Chris, we were all in the room together and just like, I wrote this pretty riff, and then it'd be like, can you turn it up though? And then it's like, turn it up.
Yeah.
And it was just like, and it just came out as like kind of like a prettier than most of the bands I've played in, but it was still like a loud punk record to me. So
definitely.
So this one, the hi-hat is closed most of the time on this record.
That's a good way to put it, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that was kind of like, you know, like we were exploring stuff of like, maybe in the chorus, we like don't get loud. Just like, what? You know, so like, it was really fun. I've been so focused on songwriting, and like, I've been slowly and more obsessed with Tom Petty the last like 5-6 years. And like, if you listen to a lot of Tom Petty songs or like radio rock hit songs, they don't get loud, you know, like that hi-hat's not opening up very often. And like the power is in the structure and in the vocal melody. And like, I think that's where we're focused on this record. The Still Sort of Healing, the second single we released, is like the loudest song on the record. So we made sure that Dog Hours was like super acoustic focused as well. Like we did acoustic on every song, and I was like, can we turn that up like all the way? You know, like that's kind of been our focus. So I definitely think it's an evolution. It's just like still the same kind of songwriting ideas, but you did it a little more intentionally.
Yeah. And you talk about a very analytical approach to listening to music. And, you know, despite the band being more or less a part-time thing, is that something that you always do? Do you always kind of listen to music and think, okay, you know, how could I use this? Are you just constantly drawing inspiration from the music that you listen to?
Yeah, for sure. Okay. It's honestly it's a blessing and a curse. You know, I talk about it with folks who don't play instruments, and like I would give anything to get that feeling back of like hearing a song and just being like, this is amazing, and not
Oh yeah.
thinking anything beyond that besides the words. I can like really remember the feeling of like hearing a song and it was just words, and like the music below it was just kind of like a nice part of it,
Right.
which to most of the world is what music still is. And I'm like, that's a crazy. I obviously like cherish the fact that I've so deep down the music hole, but I'm also like, I can't listen to any song without being like, oh, they didn't do a pre-chorus here. That's
Mm.
weird. Or like, you know, that's why I think the bands that excite me the most nowadays are bands like Spirit of the Beehive, or like any of those like newer electronic bands who are just completely ripping apart pop structure and just being like, let's just like make music. Like it's like music that still is driven by feeling and just like kind of not traditional pop structure. Although the flip side of that is that I'm still completely obsessed with trying to write the perfect song. Like
Yeah.
that's just where my heart lands. But yeah, it's a bummer. I love being able to pull apart songs, and like my favorite thing in the world is together with friends and like helping them write songs, and being, if they're like confused on structure, and like I love that shit. But I also wish that I could just play as I feel a lot of the time, or like listen to stuff and just like feel it, instead of being like, the recording on here is really cool.
Yeah.
It's a blessing and a curse.
Right.
I like it and I hate it.
Yeah. Now, are there any artists or songs or maybe a particular genre that you listen to that still does that for you? Maybe a genre that you don't know as much about, like something completely different, like, I don't know, jazz or classical. Not saying you don't know anything about those genres, just something that's apart from what you write, you know?
No, I don't know anything about jazz.
Okay.
But it's weird. It's weird too, because I really don't care about jazz either. Like
Okay.
I would love to. Like I have so many close friends, just like people that still get so pumped on like the vibe of songs and like the
Right.
feeling of songs, which I definitely do. I think mine is more like in the realm of like, if I have no idea how they made the music, jazz is fun to me, but I can at least like picture the people in the room playing it. But like a lot of like current electronic, like especially pop electronic, like that first Billie Eilish record, I was like,
Oh yeah.
how are these sounds happening? You know,
Right.
and that to me is still really exciting. And like, I can listen to that kind of away from everything. And that's why I mentioned Spirit of the Beehive too, like old friends of mine, but also like, you know, they release a record and I have no idea what it's going to sound like. I have no idea what to expect. And like, that to me is really beautiful and like a really exciting thing. And like, not really where my mind goes when I go to write songs, because 9 times out of 10, I'm still going to put on Replacements or Tom Petty or something.
Right.
And like, at least as a songwriter, that's where I really want to be. And like, that'll always be like the best to me, like somebody just kind of crafting words and like with a guitar. But as far as like actually feeling things, yeah, I would say like any of like the new electronic music, even like current pop, there's a lot of like layers in current pop music that I have like no grasp on. I think all of it is probably Ableton. Like I think if I downloaded Ableton, I'd be like, oh, all these sounds are right here.
Ah, here we
But
go.
I
Yeah.
also like avoid that stuff because I do think there's like a really nice part of like keeping that magic. Like I never learned to play piano
Yeah.
because I'm like, then I'll understand too much.
Wow. Yeah, that's cool. Do you foresee yourself ever approaching something more experimental like that?
I don't know. I think mine will always be band driven. Like
Sure.
I can't really. I've written, you know, for fun, I've written like little dancey songs on my computer, and like I've used electronic elements and shit, and like I've done a couple like soundtrack things where you're making more of like a texture rather than a song, and it just never. It's fun, but it never hits the way writing a great song hits to me. Like not that I get that feeling a lot, but it's sort of like a nostalgic thing for me too. I think if I play a riff and then hear a drummer play over it, there's like an instant feeling of like, yeah, that's what I've been trying to do for 20 years, you know,
Yeah.
like, whereas like if I make a cool electronic song, I'm like not equipped enough to be like, that's great. I'm more just like,
Right.
does this sound cool? I don't know. Like it just doesn't. Yeah, I'm not well versed enough in that music to like feel confident in it, which I think is like perfectly fine.
Sure.
I'm like, yeah, I'll just stick to what I know.
Yeah, and going back to the album briefly, especially with us talking about, new styles and experimentation and things like that, with there being, more than just one songwriter in the band, and obviously having a vision for what you guys wanted this next album to be, was it difficult to coordinate styles? Because I listened to the album and I think, okay, all these songs fit really well together. It definitely stands on its own. So was it difficult to coordinate that type of sound amongst the different writers?
I think when you're writing the record, it feels difficult because you get different demos from people and like you're trying to put a lot of sonic qualities together. But then when you go to record an album like all together in the room, like it just comes out the same, like it's the same four people playing the same four instruments or whatever. And like it just kind of cohesive. Is that a word? It hears it to itself. What the fuck? It glues itself together.
Yeah.
It's funny because I do not to like, assume a role in the band, but I do think that's a lot of the role that I took with this record. I'm much more concerned with like cohesion and like structure and like vibe of a record. I do think I took a lot of time to be like, okay, this song should have a really catchy chorus because like the verse is good, and then like the next song should be slow, and like do we have the sad song? Like I don't know, not that we talked about it that literally, but I mean I had that in mind the whole time. We bring different elements into this and like make it a cohesive thing instead of just like a clear thing that we wrote 10 different songs over the course of 3 years.
Right. So, and I know it's still early, but moving ahead of that a little bit, what do you think is next for the band in terms of your overall style and sound?
That's a good question. I actually was like trying to craft the text this morning, but was like, I'll just like talk to him later. But Matt is already like writing a bunch of new songs. And I was like, these sound a lot like Dog Hours. So I was like, how do I be like, these are great songs. What can we do to kind of shake them up a little bit?
Right.
But I imagine it being drastically different. Like, I think where Big Nothing kind of swings is like our energy levels probably between each record. Like I think about like there's no mystery that our like North Star is the Replacements. Like everything we're trying to do is just like kind of be in that same mindset. And like if you go from albums like Don't Tell a Soul, which is like kind of where we were focused on this record, which is acoustic guitar, really pretty pop songs, then you go back to an album like Tim or something where like there's a lot more screaming guitar and stuff, but that overarching element is always the same, of like someone trying to put their soul out in whatever way it is. It just depends what instrument's in front of us at the time, but I feel like it'll be similar. I bet Matt will like buy a keyboard or something and be like, yo, this is sick. And like send us some electronic drum beats or something.
Yeah.
But I think generally it's always going to be, we all love pop music. That's where we all land. And like Liz continues to write some of like the wildest pop melodies I've ever heard. So like, I feel like that's always going to be in that realm. But on this newer record, as we're writing new songs, I mean, looking beyond Dog Hours, I think we've been using the word minor a lot. We're like, let's write some minor songs, dude. Which is like how it shows you our musical prowess.
Yeah.
But I think we'll try and be a little meaner on the next one, but I don't know what that'll look like. But Philly's punk scene right now, like the Spiky Jacket Kids, that scene right now is dope. So I feel like we're all kind of feeling inspired by like faster, more aggressive music right now, and like we'll see what that creates.
That's awesome. So we've talked a couple times now about this album being very sonically different from the last, and stylistically too. Similarly to how I'm assuming you approach this album, are you intentional about trying to shake things up from the previous album to the next one? You just want to not necessarily reinvent the sound, but just put something out for some variety. Is that something you're intentional about?
I think with going forward, I personally am going to be a lot more intentional about it, only because Chris was really an album where we were just like figuring out what the hell was going on. As with a lot of bands' first record, like we were just like, what does this band do? What does it sound like when it's played back?
Yeah.
And then this new album, Dog Hours, I do feel like is the first time, even since we started, that we've accomplished what we were trying to accomplish. We really like sonically sat there and we're like, what do the albums sound like? And like, really try to accomplish that instead of just being like a pop punk kind of banger record. So I think now that we've kind of done that, I do think my focus is going to start shifting towards like, let's get a little crazy, because Dog Hours, I'm really proud of it, but it's not like an experimental record by any means. It's like really solid pop songs. I do think we'll start kind of expanding of like, maybe this song doesn't need a chorus, or like, maybe we can like play in 3/4 this time instead of some weird stuff. But generally it's always going to be like a kind of a power pop band, but I do hope to like kind of get a little wild on the next one.
Yeah,
for sure.
Cool. I love that. That sounds really exciting. I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I will ask one final question. What is something you want people to know or think about going into the release of this new album?
Whoa. More than anything, like what I've been feeling inspired by, and especially with this album, is like how continuously sick Philly is.
Yeah.
And I like, Philly, I grew up in the suburbs of Philly, so I've always had like a connection to it, even outside of music. And like, I was doing my research, listening to past episodes of this podcast, and like been trying to dive into like my friends' past interviews outside of this podcast a lot. And like, I just really value Philadelphia so much as far as music goes. Cause
Awesome.
like, I don't think the four of us would be a band without Philly. And I definitely don't think we would still be a band without Philly. Like, there's just something so nice about going, like I said, we'll like go to have band practice and be like, let's go to the bar instead. And then you run into 2 or 3 other bands that are active in Philly right now. And you're like, what are you guys working on? And it really does just feel like this beautiful, like community of artists that are like supporting each other. I don't know. It's just such a nice escape. And everyone's always like, do we move to LA? Like, I might move to LA. And everyone just stays here because I've had friends who moved to LA from Philly or New York. And they're like, oh, dude, I don't play music anymore because you just need to work all the time just to pay rent. And like, I do think Philly's just got this really special thing of like, we're all intentionally living here to keep music in our lives, even if it's not a full-time thing. Everybody that I'm friends with has music as a part of their day to day. And like, it's just a really great thing. And I do think Big Nothing's attempting to like capture Philly and capture surrounding area in like music. All these songs were written like driving around Philly or like driving around the suburbs, just trying to like sing melodies along. And so I don't know, but it's not like the album has anything to do with Philadelphia, but I do think it's so core to who we are as a band. Just anybody who's trying to do a band just should move to Philly. And it's a great thing. Like even, like doing the release show. And I was like, hey, Barry, can we play a release show at Johnny Brenda's, like one of the greatest venues in the city or in the country? And he's like, sure. Like, this is an amazing thing. We haven't played a show for 3 fucking years. It's like, it's a great vibe, great feeling. And then me and Barry got breakfast like 2 days later. I'm like, what a great, it's just a great time, great place. So just know that Philly rocks and listen to the album picturing the Liberty Bell or whatever.
Cool. I love that. Yeah, the scene really is self-sustaining in a way,
It's crazy, dude. And especially I've been involved in it for like probably 20 years now. And so it's just a crazy thing of you expect it to stop. You're like, man, what a great time in Philly. This is the most romantic time and it's never going to get better. It'll only go away. And it's just not true. It's just like keeps getting cool and weird. And like everyone, like bands cycle out and come through, and like there's always new exciting bands coming through here. And there's all the bands that I love that aren't from Philly, they're always hitting me up like, what's up with Philly? They always have like ties to Philly, and it's the best. It's the best indie scene in the country for sure.
That's cool. Yeah, I think I don't know if I mentioned this. I'm currently in the DC area, and I love going to Philly for shows.
Yeah. I mean, dude, DC's got some wild shit too. Though.
Oh, they do. Yeah.
I not like I'm the only person singing this song, but I can't stop listening to that Turnstile record. Like, talk about a band that's like doing pop music, but also like just completely turning it on its head while still being like. I feel like I've heard that record a million times and never heard it before. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like. What a cool band. And Angel Dust. Got a lot of good shit.
Yeah.
DC awesome. Is great.
Yeah. DC, Philly. I love the combined, all the venues. There's just so many. And it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. I do feel like Philly has a very like Discord vibe right now too, of just like, I mean, maybe like more so like 5 years ago where like, there was a couple record labels and like everyone's kind of united under this one umbrella. Philly, for some reason, is a lot more like venue based. Like it's like everyone, like I played Everybody Hits like once a week in different bands, saw the same people. And then you go to play Boot and Saddle, rest in peace. And it's the like same group of people, but it's a different group of people.
Yeah.
It's just Philly is really good at like 4 venues and then just like the same kind of scene coming through. I don't know. Beautiful place.
I would definitely agree with that. Big Nothing's new album, Dog Hours, comes out on February 18th, so mark your calendars. And in the meantime, listen to their most recent singles. However you put it, this new album is different from the last, but in the best way possible. Pat, this was fun. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks, Jack.